Well, guys, it's official. They're coming to our city. College Game Day will kick off the 2024 season at Kyle Field, College Station, for the matchup between the fighting Texas Aggies and the fighting Irish out of Notre Dame. We've been speculating for a while. We knew it was between this game and the game between Clemson and Georgia, but that game happens at a neutral atmosphere, and I have a feeling that that game might not be the most competitive game in Week 1. I think they made the right choice. Nick Saban will be going to College Station for consecutive years for the first time in history. We just can't get away from this guy, but he will be joining the College Game Day booth and breaking down this game and the 2024 season kickoff. What an exciting Week 1 we have ahead of us for both Notre Dame fans and Texas A&M fans. I think the storylines write themselves for this Week 1 matchup. I think it was a great choice. First of all, you have the two brands, Texas A&M and Notre Dame. Two pretty polarizing fan bases, or teams, at least in the eyes of the national college football landscape. Two teams that a lot of people love to hate, and a game that's probably going to bring a lot of eyeballs for that reason alone. But when you break down this game, you have the new-look staff at Texas A&M, the new-look team, the post-Jimbo Fisher Aggies, with Coach Mike Elko and his new staff at the helm, along with one of the top portal classes in the country. And then you have Marcus Freeman and Notre Dame, who in many people's eyes are a 2024 college football playoff contender, the first year of the 12-team playoff, for many reasons, which we'll get into in this video. But you also have Elko facing his former quarterback, Riley Leonard, who transferred from Duke, who is set to be the starting quarterback in Week 1 for Notre Dame. That's a big deal. You also have the fact that Mike Elko also once coached for Notre Dame. So there are storylines all over the place. What is Texas A&M post-Jimbo? How does Notre Dame follow up an offense that featured Audric Estime, Joe Alt, the number 5 overall pick in the NFL draft? How does Riley Leonard fit into this thing? There's a lot of stuff to look at, but more importantly, I think you're looking at an absolute vintage, top-tier college football atmosphere. I think Kyle Field is going to be absolutely electric. You think about some of the biggest games in recent Kyle Field history over the last 8 years or so. Some games that come to mind are Tennessee in 2016, the game that came down to the wire. Tennessee almost backdoored themselves into the win. Led by Alvin Kamara, at that time a very much unknown commodity who ran all over the field, but Texas A&M came up on top in that one. You think back to Jimbo's first big home game, the Clemson game in 2018. One of the best Kyle Field atmospheres I can remember in my lifetime. That game was crazy. That was the new-look team at that time. And then more recently, think about 2021 Alabama. And A&M came into that game with a couple of losses. That game became a high-level Kyle Field experience as the game went on, as we realized A&M was in this thing. You think back to 2022 Miami, following up that App State game, which, yep, I mentioned App State in another video. Mark that down on your bingo card. Everybody take a shot. I mentioned App State. But those are some of the best Kyle Field atmospheres, and I think this game has a chance to even be a level higher than some of those. I think this game will be in the lines of that Kyle Field atmosphere with Clemson coming to town in Week 2 of the Jimbo Fisher era. And of course, we got high about that one. That was the new look team. That was the new look staff. There was so much new, so much excitement in the program. And we are once again resetting to that now. I think this feeling we have right now in May, guys, it's only May, but this level of excitement, this level of hype, this level of wishful thinking and hope once again rears its ugly head around. But I think this was the intention of firing Jimbo Fisher. I think we were stale. I think we were stuck in mud. And I know the feeling right now is not the feeling I would have had if we were rolling with the same group as before. So I think this is what they wanted, and I think we're getting just that right now. You think about recruiting implications in this game for A&M with College Game Day in town. The first look at Mike Elko's team, the first look at Connor Wigman back at the helm with Colin Klein as the new coordinator. There's so much to be excited about. But of course, we're Aggies. We've been beaten down, battered. We're going to try to keep things as even-keeled as possible and not get too high or too low. But of course, we're fans. We're fans. It's going to seep in. But in this video today, way too early, I want to break this game down, look at some potential storylines in this game, preview Notre Dame a little bit, preview A&M a little bit. We talk about A&M a lot on this channel, but I'm going to give you guys some cliff notes of things we'll be looking at in Week 1 of this new system. The pressure points of the team, the areas of concern, the areas of excitement. We'll talk about all of that in this video. So guys, thanks for watching. Before we get into it, if you guys could like and subscribe, that would help me greatly. I'm trying to grow this thing throughout the offseason, so by the time the regular season rolls around, we have a nice group of Aggies and college football fans ready to hype up this team, commiserate in losses, just talk good old Aggie and college football. So like and sub, it helps me greatly. Thank you guys for being awesome. All you commenters out there, all you regular viewers, I appreciate all of you. Let's get into it. So for A&M, if you follow the channel, you know a lot of the storylines. We'll go through them here quickly. The way it pertains to week one, what we need to see in week one, the questions that need answering. You have a lot of shoes to fill on this defense. Well, you have a lot of players back, like Bryce Anderson. The defensive end group looks really, really solid. It looks like it's probably going to be the strength of the team. Safeties and defensive ends should be really good. At D tackle, you have a lot of promising pieces, but you lose McKinley Jackson, who I think is an underrated loss on this team. A defensive stalwart, a big dude, a dude that can clog running lanes, a dude that can penetrate on demand, on running plays, on first down, second down plays. You lose that. And you lose another rotation piece behind him in Isaiah Rakes that can accomplish the same thing. You don't really get a guy on this team that fills in those shoes exactly. You have to find that from within. You bring in Rodas Johnson, but that guy's not really filling that exact mold of run clogger. You have to find it from an Albert Regis. You have to find it from a guy like maybe Samu Tamu Amupepe. I don't know how much we can rely on a guy like that who seems like he needs a few years in his college development to become a down-to-down productive player. You're going to have to rely on young guys. It's going to be DJ Hicks. It's going to be whether or not he can be a down-to-down defensive tackle in the SEC his sophomore year. We have hope there. We think it's very much on the table, but we have to see it. Gabriel Brownlow-Dindy, every time we've seen him in a game, he's made an impact. He's gotten penetration. He's pushed people back. But can he be healthy? Can he stay healthy? So defensive tackle is a position I will be looking at very, very closely come week one. You're filling in the shoes, the giant shoes left behind by Edgerrin Cooper. Will it be Scooby Williams out of Florida? Will it be Solomon DeShields out of Pitt, a very veteran player out of Pitt? Or will it be someone from within? Will it be a Damian Sanford, a Martrell Harris? We don't know that answer yet. I tend to think we're going to see the veteran probably start the year in Solomon DeShields, but who knows? And what level of play will we get? We can rest easy knowing the fact that they'll be playing next to Torian York, a player that I think allowed Edgerrin Cooper to take that next step, taking the helm of the leadership role for the defense and the linebacker room his freshman year. He's a sophomore now. Is that enough? Can we fill in those shoes enough? And of course, the defensive back room, specifically the corners, the nickel. Who are the players there? One thing that we do know about this room is you have a ton of options, whether it's a experienced G5 star who's moving up to the next level, or a Jaden Hill out of Florida, or someone from within like Tyreek Chappelle. We need to see that level of play increase for Texas A&M to reach its goals in 2024. And we'll get a lot of answers in week one. Last year, I deemed the corner room as responsible for 2 losses for Texas A&M. And there's a lot of reasons you lose a game. But if you can point to one position group that lost you games last year, I would look at the corner room on the defensive side of the ball. Of course, offensive line was an issue last year. But defensively, the corner room, in my opinion, lost the game versus Bama and Ole Miss. I know that you have better options and more options at corner this year. But who will it be and what level of play will we get? I think it improves, guys. I really do, but we have to see it. Moving to the offensive side of the ball, everything's in a circle around Connor Wegman and the offensive line. That's first and foremost. Is Connor healthy? In the spring game, we saw that he wasn't healthy yet, but we are very happy about the fact that he was able to participate fully, for the most part, in spring. Maybe not as explosive, maybe not able to get up and go like he normally does, but able to go out there and enact the offense and play and learn the playbook and be with the first team offense. He was out there, he was learning, he was growing, but now he needs to get healthy throughout this offseason. Offensive line, we're obviously just looking for overall improvement. I think the addition of Adam Cushing, Tommy Moffitt, Colin Klein, that all is very, very positive for the offensive line. With Klein, we're going to see better play design to get these guys in positions to succeed. With Adam Cushing, we're going to see a totally different message coming from the offensive line coach. Steve Adazio, the former coach, has been deemed by insiders as one of the worst assistant hires in the history of Texas A&M football. This is not something I'm making up. This is something people in the know are saying, and I think the results speak for themselves there. We've seen players regress. We saw inconsistent play. We saw players falling backwards, falling on their butts. We just need to see solid play from the offensive line. I would say if you got average play from offensive line and corner, next season, you have an improved Texas A&M football team. But that's something we need to see. So Connor Wigman, I mean, come on. He has to be able to step up. He has to be able to get up and go. I recently rewatched every snap that Connor Wigman took last year. One of his best attributes is being able to navigate the pocket, taking these quick steps, having really good feet, having really good feel in the pocket. And that's not something we necessarily saw in the spring game. And of course, there were a lot of caveats in that spring game, given the way the teams were structured, given the fact that he is not 100%. And that's just factual. It's just how it is. It shouldn't be a surprise or an area of concern because we saw that. It's just expected. We need to see him take those next steps over the next few months in the offseason. Wide receiver room, we feel like we have 3 really good players at the top. But can the players, Cyrus Allen, Micah Tease, Terry Bussey, who's probably going to play some receiver, transfers, freshman Isaiah Williams, Ernest Campbell, who are the other guys in this receiver room? And can these 3 guys become consistent? Because as great a play we've seen from Noah Thomas, Ja'Day Walker, and Moose Muhammad, we haven't seen it for a full season from any of them. We've seen it in stretches throughout seasons. Last year, Ja'Day started the season strong. When Connor Wigman went down, he kind of became less productive, kind of saw the bench a little bit more. But by the time we got to the end of the season, he was probably the best receiver. Same thing with Moose Muhammad. He kind of disappeared for a while. He disappeared many times in his college career. But at his best, he's one of the best receivers we've seen in a while at Texas A&M when he's playing his best. Noah Thomas, it's injuries. I think this guy projects as an absolute wide receiver 1 for this offense. Can he stay healthy? Can he stay close to 100%? Because this guy has NFL upside if he gets through this season productive. Next draft. That's what level of play we can see from Noah Thomas and really for all 3 of the receivers there. Once again, consistency, health, and the back end of that rotation. We got to see it. Of course, there's hope there. There's hope there. Every position group on offense, there's a level of hope there, but there's also a level of uncertainty. That's college football for you. There's also just the newness factor. Across the board, offense and defense, every player is dealing with a new position coach, a new philosophy, a new culture, new ideologies, new playbook. Are they able to enact what they've been taught in week 1? That's the big question. I think we saw some positive signs in spring. Of course, it's just spring. They have all of summer. They have a fall camp. But then there's no dress rehearsal. You're straight into the Notre Dame game. And this is with a new staff. That's probably the number 1 area of concern going into next year. I think A&M has a chance to be a damn good football team next year. But how quickly can they get there under a new staff? Sometimes it can be a benefit. It's harder to scout a team with a new staff, especially this defense with a bunch of new players. It's going to be harder to scout this team out than most. Notre Dame is well established. They bring back a lot of players, especially defensively. They bring back the same DC they've had for a few years now. Marcus Freeman's been there for 4 years. Everything's new with A&M. There's give and take there. You're harder to scout, but you also have to learn a lot quickly. Where is it in week 1? Moving over to the Notre Dame side of things, they have a similar question mark as A&M, however, with a new quarterback. Connor Wigman's been here a while. Riley Leonard, the transfer out of Duke, Mike Elko's former quarterback, just got there, and he's coming off of an ankle injury he sustained mid-year last year. Things were going well, but he had a setback in his recovery. He had a second surgery, very limited in spring. I believe he did take reps in practices, but he didn't play in the spring game. He's probably a few weeks behind Connor Wigman. As I mentioned earlier, this offense loses a lot of key pieces. They lose the quarterback. They feel like they're upgrading at quarterback. However, he's going to be a new player coming off of an injury. They lose Audric Estime, their All-American running back. They lose their starting left tackle, Joe Alt, who was the 5th pick in this last year's NFL draft. They lose their other right tackle. They lose receivers. They lose 9 starters total. However, they bring back a lot of players who do have experience. It's not like they're bringing in a totally green team. It's not like it's a bunch of just new players. They bring guys back that have been in the system for a while. So it's going to be interesting to see what Mike Denbrock, the OC who was there before, left on a little excursion, was at LSU most recently with that Jaden Daniels Heisman campaign. He's back at Notre Dame now. It's going to be interesting to see what he can do with this offense in week 1 against a defense that's, like I said, going to be hard to scout against, and a defense that probably brings a really good pass rush when you're replacing starters on that offensive line, specifically at tackle. That's going to be an interesting matchup to look at, and I think that's one that A&M can absolutely capitalize on, but we have to see it. Mike Denbrock's a good DC. Riley Leonard's a really good quarterback, but where are they in week 1? Again, the cloud that hangs over this whole discussion. The Aggies definitely have their work cut out for them with this Notre Dame defense. Yes, the Notre Dame defense, if you look at the players leaving, they lose about half of the starters. They do. But what they bring back is extremely, extremely valuable. First of all, their entirety of their 2 deep, for the most part, I think they lose like 2 players out of their 2 deep, but the entirety of the rotation is back. Most of their losses are with a few starting positions. They bring back their entire two deep for the most part, and they bring back 4 of their absolute key pieces on defense. At safety, they have Xavier Watts, who was a consensus All-American last year, maybe the best safety in the country, and they bring back one of the very best corners in the country in Benjamin Morrison. These 2 guys are going to lead a very, very strong DB group for Notre Dame because, yeah, they lose the other couple of starters, but the other guys there were all part of the rotation last year. It's like the next man up. They have guys they're very excited about who are about to take that next step and become starters next year. And, of course, there's going to be an adjustment period there, but it's not like these guys are green or just starting for the first time. They bring experience back, although not starting experience in those other DB spots. Defensive line, they bring back 3 starters, 2 of which are their very, very high-level defensive tackles that A&M will absolutely have their hands full with. It's going to be a great early test for the new-look A&M offensive line that looks to have been rebuilt from the ground up. We've seen players playing in new positions, players leaving the program, players like Armaj Reed-Adams joining the program who look to be key players for A&M's offensive line. They're going to get an early test versus this defensive line. Now, where Notre Dame does lose quite a bit of production is at linebacker. They lose their 2 of their starters. They have a veteran back that is there to lead the linebacker room. However, they lose their best players at linebacker. But the safety, corner, and defensive line rooms look so strong that it does seem like they're able to sustain some adjustments at that linebacker position. And they bring back like a 6th-year player as their leader in that room. This is Al Golden's 3rd year at DC there. He's not a new coach anymore for Notre Dame. He's been there a while. The players that have been there in the system, know what's expected of them, and have played before. This defense projects as at the highest possible level as a top 5 defense in the country next year. That's what people say about them. When you look at this team and you break it down, that's what it looks like they can be. They also bring in a bunch of transfers. They have a strong transfer at defensive end that's going to fill in nicely. They have transfers coming in at the defensive back position. This defense is going to be real, guys. This defense is going to be absolutely real. And you have Colin Klein starting with this team as their matchup. This is the opening matchup, is a really, really good defense with Connor Wigman in his first game back, hopefully close to 100%. New look offensive line. And this trio of receivers that we think could be really, really good. And one overall factor that is in Notre Dame's favor, along with Al Golden being there for a few years, Marcus Freeman is no longer a young coach. This is his 4th year as the head coach at Notre Dame. He no longer has that cloud around him. This is a rookie. This is a young coach. Can he win? Does he know how to coach a team? This is an experienced coach now. Now, Notre Dame, under Freeman, has had a couple of issues. Their offense has struggled on the biggest stages. In the biggest games, they've consistently come up short. They also have struggled on the road. I think 3 out of their last 4 losses have been on the road. They struggle with the upper tier teams on the road. They're solid with the teams they should beat on the road. But when it comes to last year, it was, I believe, Louisville and Clemson that they struggled with on the road and couldn't get over that road hump with. And, of course, they start this game on the road. But this is Freeman, once again, this is his 4th year. He's been there. He's learned some lessons along the way. He's had his defensive coordinator there for a while. He has a new offensive coordinator, but it's an offensive coordinator that's familiar with Notre Dame. That's an advantage Notre Dame should have over A&M. However, Elko is now in his 3rd year as a head coach, and he's been at A&M before. So it's not like this discrepancy is huge, but it should be in Notre Dame's favor. But guys, again, it's only May. But how can us Notre Dame and A&M fans not be totally stoked for the way this season starts? Of course, you always want a runway. It's nice to get that week 1 G5 school under your belt. It's nice to have that New Mexico or that Sam Houston State under your belt before you go into your big Power 5 opponent. But how, as a fan, can you not be so hyped for this week 1 matchup? You're going to learn so much about your teams. And for Notre Dame, I'm going to pull up their schedule here real quick. This game means a lot for them. If you look at their schedule, it's extremely manageable. Louisville, Florida State, both go to South Bend to play Notre Dame. The big game that's kind of the caveat over their year, if you talk to any Notre Dame fan, any Notre Dame commentator, it's the A&M game. They win that game. They have 1 or 2 mulligans throughout the rest of a very manageable schedule. But they're only the underdog in one game, and that's the game versus A&M right now. Right now, they're a 1-point underdog versus A&M. Very much a toss-up. Very much could go either way. But that basically tells you that the odds makers think the home field advantage does it for A&M. But this is without having seen either team yet. It could be totally different than what we're thinking right now. But they win that game, they have such a nice path to the playoff. They have several games to get ready for that Louisville game, and then they don't really have a tough away game until Georgia Tech mid-year. And at the end of the year, they play Southern Cal at Southern Cal, but we're talking about a Southern Cal who's in a very much a rebuilding era right now, post Caleb Williams. Lincoln Riley's tenure there very much in question, very much up in the air. It looks like a game that you would favor Notre Dame in right now, and according to DraftKings, Notre Dame is a 3-point favorite in that game. So this is a big game for Notre Dame, as it is for A&M. Of course, A&M has to go to the Swamp 2 weeks after this. A&M starts the season hot and fast once again, this time starting in week 1. But guys, I think this has a chance to be an all-time Kyle Field experience. If you're a Notre Dame fan watching this, I encourage you to do what you can do to make it to this game if you can swing it. Tickets are extremely expensive. I know. I just bought my ticket for this game, and it hurt. I also had to get an Airbnb because I want to go to College Game Day. So if you guys are there and you see me, come say hi. I'll be there for game day. I'll be there for the game. We can hang out. Come give me a fist bump, and we'll talk about our Aggies. We'll hype it up. We'll be super excited. But guys, it's only May. It's only May. I know we're excited, but let's calm down a little bit. We have a long way to go. We have a lot of things to think about. And, of course, with A&M, you don't want to get too high or too low before we get into the season. But there's a lot of reason for excitement right now. So, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you enjoyed this way too early preview of this Week 1 matchup that is now the College Game Day Week 1 game. Hope you enjoy the offseason. I'll see you guys real soon. Thanks, and gig 'em.